His drone captured what no one was supposed to see. The man was piloting his drone above a beach when all of a sudden he noticed something unusual. He didn't know what it was at first, but it became more apparent as he got closer. As he drew nearer, he could make out the details. It was a dead body. The man was shocked and concerned, so he decided to stay hidden and alert for any signs of danger. But then he noticed another body, and after a while, a third one appeared. How did these people die? And why were they all lying on this deserted island? The drone pilot immediately contacted the local authorities and informed them of the situation. A large search and rescue operation was launched, but it soon became clear that the 3 bodies found on the island posed a serious challenge. In fact, things were about to get much worse. It was a beautiful day at the beach. The sun was shining, the birds were tweeting, and families were having picnics on the soft golden sand. Daniel had decided to take his new drone out for a spin and see what it could do. He wasn't expecting anything interesting, but he was in for a big surprise. As Daniel hovered his drone over the beach, his eyes scanned the area, looking for something to capture on camera. The drone was equipped with a high-definition camera that allowed him to zoom in and see things from a different perspective. Suddenly, something caught his eye. On the far side of the beach, hidden behind a cluster of palm trees, was a dark shape lying on the sand. At first, Daniel couldn't make out what it was, but as he maneuvered the drone closer, he began to realize that it was a human body. Daniel was shocked. Who could be lying on the beach on such a nice day? And how did they get there? He continued to hover the drone, trying to make out more details of the body. That's when he saw something that made his blood run cold. There were 2 other bodies lying on the beach, all of them seemingly lifeless. Daniel knew he had stumbled upon something he shouldn't have seen. He felt a sense of dread wash over him as he realized the gravity of the situation. But his curiosity was piqued. He needed to know more, so he decided to stay hidden and observe from above. As Daniel watched from above, he noticed that none of the bodies were moving. They had been lying there for quite some time. He could see that one of the bodies was wearing a blue shirt, and another had a red hat next to it. Each body was unique, yet they all shared one thing in common, an eerie stillness that hinted at a tragic fate. Daniel wanted to help, but he knew he couldn't do it from up there. He needed to get closer, but how? He considered landing the drone on the beach, but knew it would be too risky. The drone was small, but it would be easy for someone to spot, and if the people on the ground saw him, they might think he was part of the problem. Daniel knew he needed to come up with a plan, and fast. He decided to try something bold. Daniel would fly the drone closer to the bodies, just close enough to get a better look, but not close enough to be seen. He knew it was a risky move, but he was desperate to find out what had happened to these people. With the drone hovering above, Daniel zoomed in his camera and gasped. One of the bodies was a woman. She had long flowing hair and her arms were outstretched, as if she had been trying to reach out for help. Daniel felt a pang of sympathy for her. Whatever had happened to her, it must have been terrifying. He continued to scan the area with his drone's camera, hoping to find some clues as to what had happened here. That's when he saw it, a small object lying next to the woman. He zoomed in and gasped again. It was a cell phone. Daniel knew he had to do something. He quickly took a few pictures of the scene and sent them to the authorities. At the same time, he started recording a video message explaining what he had found. Then he did something that few people ever do. He left the safety of his home and went to the beach to see for himself. When Daniel arrived at the beach, he was shocked by what he saw. The bodies were still there, and the sight was both eerie and heartbreaking. He knew he had done the right thing by contacting the authorities, but he couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. He wanted to help, but he knew he couldn't do it alone. That's when he remembered his drone. He had captured images of the scene from above, and now he hoped that those images would help the authorities to understand the gravity of the situation. As the police arrived at the scene, Daniel handed over his drone and explained what he had seen. He described how he had found the bodies and how he had tried to gather evidence from above. The police were grateful for Daniel's help, and he knew he had done the right thing. But he couldn't shake the feeling that he could have done more. He looked out at the sea, wondering how these people had ended up on the beach. Were they lost at sea? Had they been shipwrecked? Or was there something more sinister at play? As the investigation into the deaths of the 3 people on the beach began, Daniel couldn't help but think about what had led them to this tragic end. The police were baffled. They had no leads and no motive. The 3 people had been identified, but their families had no idea why they had been on the beach or how they had died. Days turned into weeks and the case went cold. Daniel couldn't bear to see the tragedy being forgotten, so he decided to take matters into his own hands. He knew he didn't have the resources of the police, but he was determined to find answers. Daniel started by visiting the families of the deceased. He wanted to know more about their loved ones, their relationships, and their lives. He hoped that maybe he would find something that the police had overlooked. While Daniel was talking to the family of one of the victims, he learned that they had been on a sailing trip when they disappeared. This was a clue that the police had missed, and it gave Daniel a new direction to pursue. He went back to the beach and started searching for anything that could have come from a sailing trip. He looked for pieces of debris, rope, or anything else that could provide a link to the sea. Finally, he found something, a piece of wood that looked like it had come from a boat. Daniel was excited. He knew this was a break in the case, but he also knew he had to tread carefully. He didn't want to contaminate the evidence, but he couldn't resist. He took a few pictures of the wood and sent them to the police. The police were able to confirm that the wood did, in fact, come from the missing boat. This was the link they needed to connect the deaths on the beach to the missing sailing trip. With this new evidence, the police were able to piece together what had happened. The 3 people on the beach had been part of a sailing trip that had gone awry. Their boat had capsized and they had been thrown into the water. They had managed to swim to the beach, but had sadly passed away due to dehydration. Daniel was relieved to have helped solve the case, but he couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness. The 3 people had lost their lives in a tragic accident, and their families would never forget what had happened on that fateful day. But Daniel knew that he had done the right thing by helping the police. He had used his skills and his determination to bring closure to a tragic case, and that gave him a sense of satisfaction that he had not found elsewhere. In the end, Daniel's actions had made a difference. He had helped to solve a mystery and bring justice to the victims. And as the community mourned the loss of their loved ones, they also celebrated the heroism of the man who had captured what no one was supposed to see.